Jamie and I just invested in a bunch of new equipment. A friend of ours had a machine shop that was closing up and it was kind of too good a deal to pass up. So I figured it would be a good opportunity to show you kind of a walkthrough on milling machines and what to look for in a milling machine, since the reason we spent the money on this one was it's such an upgrade from the ones we had previously. So the first thing, the most obvious difference between this and the other Bridgeports we have, or vertical milling machines, this is an actual Bridgeport. This is great. It has a variable speed power system on it. So this, you just spin this dial and you can adjust the speed. It's a mechanical system rather than electronic, so you don't lose torque or anything like that. This is a great system, and I had the chance to run this machine before I purchased it. This system works flawlessly, and you want to make sure you check that. These can be expensive to fix and go bad. They don't go bad very often, but they can be damaged quite easily by using them improperly. You have to have the machine running when you turn this. If you don't, you can jam the belt in there and then damage the internals of this, and then it can be a costly repair. Other than that, they work flawlessly for years and years and years. So you just have to make sure the machine's on, then you adjust the speed. Don't do it beforehand. The other thing I wanted to check is I wanted to make sure it went in and out of back gear, which it does. The back gear is a secondary range. If you look at this dial here, sorry, that was from the riggers. You have two sets of numbers. You have the lower number and the higher number. The lower number is in back gear, which is basically another set of gears. You'll notice this is set up with a forward and reverse. When I'm in back gear, it has to go the opposite direction. Now, things you want to look out for when you're buying a milling machine, most of these are going to be three-phase. So you want to make sure that you're getting a machine that you can run on your own wiring. Some are wired for 220 single phase. That's great. If it's not, if it's three-phase, you have two choices, and you don't have three-phase. The first choice is to just buy a rotary phase converter. Many people do this. If you're going to do that, I would size the converter larger, because that gives you the option of running multiple machines on the same converter. The other option is to run a VFD. A VFD will take single phase power, convert it to three phase, and also give you the option of variable speed. So that's the first thing. This next thing I wanted to check how tight the spindle is. In this case, the spindle has almost no run out. I can't feel any run out in here. There's no run out side to side. The ways are still very tight. Everything moves smoothly. There's very little end-to-end play. I have not leveled this machine yet, and it's sitting up on two corners, which is why it looks like it's moving, because it's actually moving. I have to get it wired still, so we haven't gotten an electrician over yet. I want to make sure that the ways are in good shape with no nicks. In this case, the ways have the original scrape marks on them. These are chromed ways. They're very smooth, very hard. They don't tend to wear out very soon. This still has a scrape marks that says years and years of wear still on it. So that's great. I want to make sure I don't have a ton of backlash. Backlash is when you turn this, how far that goes before the table moves. I want to check both dimensions. I want to make sure that the table goes up and down if it's an email, and generally just make sure everything works. In this case, everything works and works flawlessly. As an added bonus, we have this. This is what's called a DRO. This is powered off 110, so I can plug in the wall and actually show you. This is a digital readout. So I'll zero this. Now I've zeroed the table to wherever it's sitting. And as soon as I turn this, you'll see my x-axis changes. I just move this a little over 1/8 of an inch. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Moved an inch. Like that. And I can move really accurately. See, you see this is four places. So that's, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. That's a half a thou degrees. Which means that I can be very accurate in my movements and very repeatable. If I set up a vise in here and tram it correctly, I can be the same side to side, top to bottom. Tramming means you put an indicator in the head here, and you put your vise in here, and you make sure that one edge of the vise is in line based on this movement to the other edge. You can also trim the head So left to right, this way. Bridgeports, you loosen these 4 bolts and you can spin this head. So sometimes they'll shift out of alignment. So you want to make sure that you're trammed left to right, and this is up and down. And you can also spin this head this way, so you want to make sure you're trammed front to back. I'll do another video later and show you how to tram that out. Probably when I set this machine up. But yeah, so when you're looking at a machine, you basically want to look at the general condition, how it works, how accurate it is, and then the price. Really good Bridgeports like this can go for 10 grand. You know, they go crazy money sometimes. We got a really good price on this. I was very happy to get it. The downside is then I had to pay a rigger to bring it over here. So whatever I pay for the machine, I have to remember that rigger cost is going to be more expensive. Unless you have a forklift and a way to move this machine, it's not a machine you're going to move by yourself. The rigger came in with I think a 6,000 pound or 8,000 pound forklift. He picked it up on a 4x4, drove the machine in here and dropped it right where it is. Once I move this now, I'm going to either do it on rollers or I'm going to have to hire a rigger again. Pain in the butt. We moved several machines at the same time, and it was still almost $1,000 to move those machines. You know, not bad considering what we had moved, but it is a cost you have to remember. So, costs associated with upgrading to a milling machine. You have the machine itself. You have the electricity, getting that wired in, rigging costs, and then becomes the most expensive one, and that's tooling. When you have a machine like this, it's useless without tooling. Now, this machine didn't come with a ton of tooling, but I already have tooling, so I wasn't terribly worried about it. What it did come with is a full set of collets, and these are drill chucks that fit in the collets. Came with 2 of those, and it came with a few accessory wrenches and handlings. Nothing excessive. I also got a vise with this. Now the vise is a big deal. Really, it was a really nice vise. It's in the other room. I haven't put it on yet. The vices can be a little expensive. A good vise for a milling machine can run upwards of $500 new. Used and find them in the right market, it's still a couple $100 to buy a decent milling vise. So if that comes with the machine, bonus. To do other things like working on folders and stuff, you're going to need a rotary table. If it comes with that, even better. If it comes with an angle plate or a vise that can swivel, even better. All of those things that you can get extra in the original deal make that machine worth just so much more. Cutters, if you have end mills are pricey. You know, a single end mill can go $50 if it's carbide. If the guy will throw in some end mills, even better deal. All right, I'm gonna go and show you what not to buy. Okay, so this is a older milling machine that we're actually starting to try to get rid of. We're actually selling this off. Now this is actually a really good milling machine. It does have a few faults. This is a Gorton J head tracer mill. Now its upsides are, this is an extremely stiff machine. It is built like a tank. There is nothing on this machine that is not solid and overbuilt. And that's great. It means you can take a heavier chip load and you can do a lot heavier work. Unfortunately, the kind of work that I do, not heavy loads. I'm doing small bits, light tool loads. So, it wasn't the best for me. Up until recently, I've been using this for nothing but decking Damascus billets with a fly cutter. And it worked good for that. And one of the reasons I really liked using this machine that way was it has auto feeds built in. It has an auto feed in both dimensions, X, Y. And this machine has a slight bit of backlash, but considering it's from the 40s, this machine is in really good condition. It is pretty tight, but it is not the most flexible machine. For one thing, it does not have a tilt head, so it can only mill things 90 degrees to the surface of the deck unless you twist it in the vise. Downside, it's a two-speed and belt drive, perfectly fine, except that the three-phase, what's called a heater or starter for the high speed is blown. I priced it, it's cheaper just to replace it with a VFD, and I just never got around to doing it. So I kind of limited it. somebody will buy this mill and get a really good deal. It'll be a great milling machine for somebody, just not for a knife maker. You know, I could do a lot of the things I do on my Bridgeports, but this particular machine is not as versatile as a Bridgeport. So it is a little bit of a downside. On the upside, I did not pay a lot of money for this machine. I bought this, oh geez, 12 years ago or so for about 400 bucks, 450 bucks. When I sell it off, I'll ask the same amount. I'm sure it'll sell relatively quickly. It is a great machine for somebody who's doing machining work, not so much for somebody who's doing machining work in small parts, like for a knife maker. So there you go. So this is our older milling machine. This is a Taiwanese clone of a Bridgeport. It's such a clone that I bet I could even take this head and mount it on the other one and it'd drop right on the same bolt pattern. These are good machines. They're not badly built. This one's seen better days. It's a little bit loose, has quite a bit of backlash. You can see I can move this quite a bit before the table starts to move. The table itself is reasonably tight. There's no shaking or anything. The gibs are tight and they can be adjusted. There is enough play in this machine, especially in the head and here, that you start to see some chattering, and if I push carbide too hard, it definitely snaps it. But this machine was pretty inexpensive and has done wonderful for us. I think I paid about $2,500 for this thing delivered, which is a good price, considering that it cost us about $600 just to deliver the new one. This machine came with collets and nothing else. I think it came with a vise as well. Definitely, when you're looking, you want to make sure you're getting as much tooling as you can with it. I have probably now spent more in tooling than I have on the lathe itself over the years, most of which was for specific jobs. That said, if you get a chance to buy one of these, buy it. It's a great machine. It'll do everything you want it to do as a knife maker, and they don't take up that much room. If you don't have room for a full-size milling machine, it's still not out of your abilities to own one. They make smaller milling machines, benchtop milling machines. There's brand new ones on the market for around $800. Those are pretty decent for the money. They do take a lighter cut, but they work fine. They'll slot guards. If you get a rotary table, you'll be able to do round, if you're doing folders, you can do bearing circles, that kind of thing. And they work good. There's also older mills on the market, Clausings and a few other brands that are micro mills. They're for benchtop use. They were pretty popular in the late 40s, early 50s. And those are well-built machines, well worth the money. You know, a milling machine doesn't really make it so that you can do better work, but it makes it faster to do the same level of work. If you're having problems with guard fits, a milling machine's not going to solve all your problems. But what it will do is it will make you make that slot faster and more accurately and more repeatably. Since I started using the milling machine for guard fits and for a few other things, it's not that my fits have gotten better, they just got faster, which is nice, especially if you're in ready to move on to the more fun parts, like shaping the card. But in any case, I hope that helps, guys. There's a little walkthrough. I should probably go through other things you want to look for when you're buying this. You want to make sure it goes in and out of back gear. You want to make sure all the speeds work. You want to make sure that the belts, if it doesn't in good shape, the pulleys are in good shape, belts are cheap. Don't worry about belts. I like to see oil stains on machines because that means somebody's maintained it. If you see oil pouring off of a machine, that means that somebody's oiled it, which if they don't get oil, they start to degrade very quickly. You want to make sure that all these little oil ports, you oil them at the frequency that the machine recommends. In this case, it says weekly. Put oil in here, oil here. There's a couple other spots. And I try to do that. If you don't put oil in these machines, they fail pretty quickly. The bearings start to wear out and it just goes downhill. So, oil is always your friend with any machine tool. Usually use like a SAE 30 weight. Well, that's probably good. But check your machine manual. They'll tell you. You can look up machine manuals for these pretty much anywhere. So yeah, hope that helps. We'll see you next time.